And just to reiterate again, sorry, I'm kind of like a broken record sometimes, but essentially, in this body of work, Larry Sultan's father was essentially calling out this postmodern idea of, you know, fact and fiction, and essentially the fact that, like, when he was photographing being photographed, that wasn't really him as a subject, and the subject was truly the photographer taking the subject represented in the image of his father, but not truly his father.
Hmm.
That sounds that sounds terribly convoluted,
So
everyone. I
it's like the person taking the picture sees what they want to see out of the subject. So it's more about what the photographer wants to say about how they interpret the subject than how the subject themselves sees themselves.
Right. And I don't think that's an absolute, but it
Hmm.
is at least provocative as an idea. And
Hmm.
one thing that you get into when you're really studying these photographers, looking at their reviews, looking at interviews, looking at their books, and what critics have had to say, you can learn a lot about sort of the ideas that are playing around in those images. And, like we often, I think, get really taken by beautiful images, but beauty itself doesn't really tell you anything. Like, it doesn't necessarily make you interested, right? Because,
Hmm.
like, if something's beautiful, then you might just be like, oh, that's beautiful, and then you might just dismiss it. But how do you, as a photographer, actually engage the viewer to look at an image longer than it takes to just swipe through a bunch of photos on Instagram, right? How
Right.
can you actually get them to pause and think and provoke them? And so there's a lot of intention that goes behind the picture, and hopefully it's represented inside the picture as well.
Nice.
Um, Here's another, real popular guy named Alex Soth. Everyone loves him. If you haven't looked at his work, this is from a body of work called Niagara, and he spent time going to Niagara Falls and exploring this idea of romance and decrepitude that exists there. And it's a very cheesy place if you've never been there. And it's also kind of bridged by two different cultures, both the American culture on one side, the ugly side, and the Canadian side, which may be more beautiful, but also tacky in its own way. Because
Hmm.
the Canadian side is a side where you actually get to see the Niagara Falls,
Hmm.
get to see all its majestic glory and beauty. And so he's really exploring this idea of love and sadness in this body of work. And in a lot of his work, he's really taking these portraits of people. Um, and there's something awkward about this particular image. And, how do you capture that? Is it reality? Is it based in anything that of the subjects themselves, or is it based in an idea? Um, I don't even think Alec knows that. And, but like as a viewer, are you interested in, does the image give you something to look at and linger at? It does, and it's successful. And that was just a brief overview of some of those photographers that I've been looking at and really thinking about and really enjoying. And now we're going to talk a little bit about my work, which is not at that level, and that's fine. It's a journey. Like, it's
Don't
hard.
discredit yourself. We'll
The
make up our
time, the
minds about
practice.
that.
So, so this is a body of work that I've been making, and I don't have a. I don't. The working title is called "The Idea of the Beach." And sometimes you make a photograph and it becomes sort of a thesis. And so in this case, I would say this image that I happen to take on this island in Thailand that is known for its full moon party. And this was at a water park in the interior of the island that I just got really fascinated with photographing. And so I've been making this body of work kind of around that the idea of a place is actually more appealing than the place itself. And the place itself takes on kind of these grotesque and absurd dimensions. So, um, you know, this is the interior of the island. There's no beach in sight. It's a water park that's man-made, and there's this guy with this great beach trunks, these beach trunks that show like a perfect beach, and it's like that is what we envision when we think of the beach. That's where we want to go. That's our
Especially
mind
Thailand.
beach. And this is a real beach that we end up in sometimes, you know? It's not even a beach. It's kind of this absurd water park with a giant slide. And so there's something that I've just been really attracted to in terms of this environment. And so I went that initial year, and then I went back last year, and I'm hoping to go back this year at the end of the year if flying is still allowed. And here's some other images from that work. And I was initially working with film, and now I've been switching to digital and shooting with a full frame digital camera. And so I intend to keep going back to this beach and also to this island as a whole and kind of explore the people and this kind of weird environment in which, you know, floods of people come to participate in this kind of bacchanal of just drinking and excess and partying and clubbing and these artificial environments that are grown kind of around that space. And you don't necessarily have to know entirely what kind of work you're making. I just encourage you to stick with an idea or to expand the idea or to just play around and just keep, you know, kind of going over it, going over your images and see kind of what sticks. And also at that time, if you're making photography and, you know, really start to ask some people that you trust, you know, Yvette is a great resource. Any of the other teachers that you might take who are artists are a great resource. And so just build those connections and, you know, take some classes in photography you're interested in. See what really excites you. I think what's really exciting about making work in general is that, and liking work, is that we don't all like the same thing. You know, sometimes things resonate within us and we don't entirely know why. And I would say like that's a good starting point for making some work.
Can I ask you a technical question about that last picture?
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you using your iPhone or a DSLR for this shot?
Yeah, I was using my Sony DSLR.
Cool. Did you manipulate the lighting, or was that the lighting that you saw while you were there?
So these are very unmanipulated at this point. Like this is pretty much a facsimile of like what it was like. It's kind of a dark image. I would probably brighten it up. The lighting at this time wasn't great. It was kind of a mixed lighting situation, and it was a little bit cloudy. And so, you know, really paying attention to the quality of light, golden hour or early morning is always going to be a hit.
I think you did a good job here, though, kind of capturing the sort of disillusioned feel. Because when I look at that image on the right, especially, there's nothing about it that feels like paradise. It feels a little bit like Arkansas. No offense if any of you are from Arkansas. But it has that kind of like middle afternoon, not very bright or sunny. Like there's not a lot of like joy or fun in that kind of lighting. And I think the fact that you captured that instead of manipulating that is a really successful choice.
Thanks, Yvette. Yeah, I mean, you know, like ultimately the process of making work and any kind of work, whether that's photography or painting or printmaking, it's a process that takes many revisions. So, you know, like I'm showing you this work, it's unfinished, it's work in progress. This may not even be an image that I want to keep ultimately. And this project could go on for many years. Like I anticipate this going on for several years more at least. But yeah, there's just something about again that environment of like this weird non-beach scene.
Yeah,
that I'm just attracted to.
James, I'm super sorry, but we have 5 more minutes.
Great. So let's rush along. This is another body of work I've been making at home, and it's been really convenient to be in isolation because I have all these people at my disposal who are my housemates. I live in a cooperative living situation with 11 other housemates. So it can get pretty hectic. And so you can even see by the chore calendar, sort of a documentary project that's still figuring out what the vision is entirely. But, you know, just making work and, you know, the sorting process comes later. And it's not finished, but there's something about living together in community that I want to represent and show to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of the idea of occupying space, sharing space, but not always interacting with each other, um, somehow really appeals to me.
Is that last shot one continuous shot, like a panoramic, or is it separate shots?
It's one photograph.
Oh
It
wow,
is one. Yeah.
that's
So I'm
pretty.
looking for those moments. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And then this is a new series I've started since quarantine Game on Lockdown. I encourage you, whether or not you have a professional camera or just your iPhone or your Android phone, just play around, make some work. And I've been creating this series that I eventually want to make into a larger grid with my different housemates. So hope to catch them all like Pokemon, but also playing around. Um, I've been really attracted to this location, this mirror at the top of the stairs at the front of my house, because it gets this really great afternoon light.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that I think is fun about having routine and a practice. And so I've been really enjoying taking these photographs and hope to put them all together at a certain point. And the last one I've been doing, I just initiated this on my Instagram page, and this is called Normal Photo. And so I've got two photographs so far. And when golden hour comes, I'm going to go out to this specific site near my house, and we'll take another photograph. And I think there's just something appealing about kind of the way of this fence,
Mm-hmm.
the lines that are being drawn, and just sort of that light and the flowers. It's something I really don't like to do because I think it's sort of basic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also funny to, again, to call it normal photograph because it's, you don't see like the crisis or pandemic necessarily.
Uh-huh.
So that's sort of guiding me. And whatever,
Mm-hmm.
basic is fine. I take selfies all the time and post them on Instagram. I think it's just a really great way to just start showing your work and just having fun.
Yeah.
Just have fun and don't judge yourself too harshly for anything that you're
Right.
doing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very like basic photograph, or, you know, what you're doing, posting it on Instagram might be kind of like a basic move, but it seems like you're intentionally picking subject matter that you don't particularly like or that people wouldn't be particularly drawn to. And by repeating it, there's a suggestion there that you're experimenting with something conceptually, if I'm on the right track there.
Yeah, no, it's a great trick that I always resort to. Like, just go back and photograph the same thing or make a work about the same thing, maybe modify it slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, you're just going to get some really interesting things happening. And
Right.
really, again, considering sequence
Mm-hmm.
and flow of like images and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
You start to notice things when you're doing the same things over and over again.
Right, and we may track this may be interesting to like mark the tracking of the blooms and how those things shift over time and what this scene looks like in different hours of the day. So once I finish this third one, I was thinking about doing a series of 3 night photographs of this environment and see what it looks like then. So just like it's just fun and interesting. I think performing rituals is something that's really useful as an artist,
Nice.
both for making work and for like practicing work.
Totally. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing so much of your thought process.
Yeah, and I just want to end by showing you a few resources to look into if you're at all interested in finding out more. Feel free to, I will send these links to Yvette as well, and so just take a look. There's a lot of great events happening online, especially on the Yale Photo Instagram. So if you're interested in learning more from photographers in conversation, it's a really great resource. I'll post links to really cool conversations with very important photographers making work today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.